couple of months ago, our skies were graced with one of the brightest and best comets to be seen for some time, Comet NeoWISE. And from this site, we were able to get some excellent views of NeoWISE. Now, a comet is an icy messenger that comes to us from the distant reaches of space. And it will travel around the solar system and may well pass many of our planets. So we're going to use that now as an excuse to hitch a ride on NeoWISE and take a quick tour of our solar system. So we can look back on our home, the Earth. And we may call it the Earth, but it is defined by water. Water upon the surface of the Earth is what makes life as we know it possible. And a great question we've got is, where did that water come from? One possibility is that the water was delivered to us on the Earth by comets such as the one upon which we ride now. But we'll carry on away from the Earth and head towards Venus, the nearest of the planets to us. In so many ways like the Earth, and named for the goddess of beauty. But whilst from the Earth we can see it's covered in cloud, when you approach it, this is far from beautiful. A planet where the temperatures reach 500 centigrade, the rains of sulfuric acid, the mountains are decorated with a frost made of metal, the pressures are crushing, and volcanoes spew across the surface. This is a terrible place for anybody to visit. But even here, we could visit this. Spacecraft that have landed on Venus rarely last more than a couple of hours. But it is possible to fly craft through the skies of Venus. The Vega spacecraft flew for days, nearly a week, through the skies of Venus. So, you never know, maybe we could visit. Just don't set your foot on the ground. And on to Mercury, the closest of the planets to the Sun. So close that the temperature upon the surface rises to 400 centigrade. This is baked, furiously baked under the sunlight. But it spins incredibly slowly, so slowly that its nights are so long that in the night the temperature can fall below minus 100 centigrade. It spins so slowly that one day upon the surface of Mercury lasts for 2 of Mercury's years. And even here we have discovered water. The craters at the poles of Mercury are so deep that they never see sunlight, and their temperature never rises above freezing. And we have discovered evidence of frozen water, ice, on the surface of Mercury. But this close to the Sun, our cometary lift is starting to evaporate and boil away. So we'll turn away from the Sun and follow our comet as it heads out past the Earth and out towards Mars. Mars, a dry and barren world. But it was not always so dry and barren. There are vast river valleys and great lakes upon Mars. If we could wind the clock back far enough, we would find that Mars is a warm and watery world. There are vast canyons on Mars, larger than the Grand Canyon. These would have formed huge river valleys, pouring out into a great northern sea. That water, though, has long since evaporated, and now Mars is dry, barren. Well, the spacecraft visited it, and some of them have found some water, maybe enough for us to use in future, but largely it is a desert world. And on to the largest of the planets, Jupiter, the king of the gods. Jupiter, with its vast red spot, Jupiter with great storms and clouds patterns stretching around its surface. Jupiter, a gas giant. There is no surface. If you were to try to land on Jupiter, you would sink through the clouds and be crushed by the weight of clouds alone. There might be a surface somewhere way down in that depth. We honestly don't know for certain. It might somewhere deep down there have a surface rocky like the Earth's. It could be some bizarre and exotic material like metallic hydrogen. But certainly if we're going to come and visit here, we're not going to land on Jupiter itself. If we did want to stop though, it's got plenty of moons we could stop off at. There are lots of very small moons. We won't worry about those. But it's got 4 big moons, the Galilean satellites. These are moons that are the size of planets, moons that are larger than the planet Mercury. There is Io, close to Jupiter, heated by the gravity and the tidal effects until the whole surface is one rolling, boiling volcano covered in sulfur, a very vision of hell itself. Dante would be proud. But let's have a look at this. It's Europa, further out. It's cold, it's frozen, and that frozen surface is water ice. And this is fascinating because deep beneath that ice is an ocean. The largest ocean of the solar system is not upon the Earth. It is buried beneath the surface of the moon Europa. This might well be the best place in the solar system to look for life. And on to Saturn. Famous, of course, for its rings. Another gas giant planet, very similar in that respect to Jupiter. Now let's have a look at some of its moons. There is Titan, one of the largest moons in the solar system. And it's got a big, thick atmosphere. And just like the moons around Jupiter, we can land here. We have landed here. A little robot called Huygens landed in 2005. And it was able to see that the surface of Titan has rivers and lakes. It has clouds, it has rain made of methane. The temperatures here are so low that it rains methane and the rocks are made of ice. So we have a lake of methane sitting upon rocks made of ice. And below the rocks made of ice, and there's a good reason to believe, there may be more lakes of water. Even out here we can find water. But a better example of a cool moon is Enceladus. It's quite a small moon. But its surface, another frozen surface of water ice. And we can see geysers erupting, blasting crystal jets of ice into space. And they are replenishing the rings of Saturn. Saturn is refurbishing its own ring system by tearing apart its own moons. And as we head out past the gas giants, we carry on and past the ice giants, Uranus and Neptune. And Uranus and Neptune have been rarely visited and are barely known. Only one spacecraft has visited them. We might be able to study them with telescopes like this, but a single spacecraft, Voyager II, has visited them way back in the late 1980s. So I'm afraid we must leave them as mysteries to be revisited. But we will carry on for just a little bit further. And as we carry on out, we go past Voyager II. Voyager II is one of the most distant spacecraft we have ever built. It has travelled so far from the Sun that it will never return. It is our first emissary to the stars, and it will travel forever. Our comet will not go to stars, it will come back. But our comet, NeoWISE, will take 7,000 years before it returns to be seen again. So we're going to leave NeoWISE now and head back to the Earth.